On January 29, 2016 at 6:05 p.m., Kwame Richardson wasn't in the pursuit of happiness. Instead, he was in the pursuit of violence. You see, Tamisha Brown, Mary Thomas had no idea that just around the corner from the house that they were innocently pulling up to, that Kwame Richardson and Henry Hayes were lurking just there. This was a plan that had been set into motion back in January 28, 2016, when Sanquon Bradford admittedly provided them the tools to create it. That was them. As much as Ms. Wright wants to distance her client from Henry Hayes, they are friends. It's not something that we're making up or saying. Picture after picture, video after video, they are friends. And I'm going to say the G word for her. They are in a gang. This is not the church lady group just wearing rest in peace shirts. This is not just a group of guys that want to have a book club for their long lost friend, Ken Dre. They do have common signs. They do have the same hand signs. Here it is, Vontaland. Here, K's up for Ken Dre. Just depends on who they want to show respect to. They are a gang. Ladies and gentlemen, in this case, you have come such a long way from where you started, okay? The law is, and what we all depend on you for, is that you don't prejudge a man. That is, you don't prejudge him just because he sits on that side of the table, okay? You come in, you listen carefully to the evidence which you have. And I know I'm separating you from lunch, but if you could just give me a couple more minutes, all right? You listen carefully. You weigh the evidence. You look at the facts and circumstances, not in a vacuum, not piece by piece, but putting them together. See how they work. And then, this is a rebuttable presumption. It doesn't always and forever cloak this defendant's actions from your eyes. Instead, the evidence, piece by piece, witness by witness, not the question, the answer is the evidence, and it comes to explain and forever reveal his actions to you. What happened that day, and who did it? Who did it? Well, I've heard it said many times before, lawyers were like, well, if the law is against you, argue the facts. If the facts are against you, yep, you better argue the law. Well, what do you do? What do you do when both of those things are against you? Put somebody else on trial. Unfortunately, this is not the state of Florida versus Sanquon Bradford. We'd already be out of here by now. He's already said he did it. He already said he stole the car. Instead, this is a state of Florida versus Kwame Richardson. They have fingered him 100% and said, you know what, not on that day, not on January 29th. It couldn't be Kwame Richardson. He hung out. He's not attached to the Cracker Jack. But Sanquon Bradford is. A reasonable doubt is this. It is not a mere possible doubt, speculative, imaginary, forced doubt, and such a doubt must not influence you to return a verdict of not guilty if you have an abiding conviction of guilt. What did she argue? Tamisha Brown didn't see Kwame Richardson. Duh. She saw Henry Hayes. She saw Henry Hayes hanging out of the window, just like you said, shooting a gun. Yep. But who else did she see? She saw the front seat shooter, okay, with a mask on. He designed it that way. He designed it so that this big old Mac 90, the big, they call them choppers, showing the jury state's exhibit 298. He could hang in the cut with a mask on and shoot. She didn't pay that much attention to the front seat passenger because he had a mask on. She paid attention to the guy that was hanging out. He didn't want her to identify him. Does he get a high five for that? Or is it how they designed it? Just like the car. Stick the tin on the outside. That old bubbly, messed up stuff, they stuck it on the outside. They would not get identified. The defendant was a dark-skinned black male. We know the evidence of that. He's best friends and close friends with Henry Hayes. Can't deny that. The defendant is a criminal gang member, and just days before the drive-by shooting, in close proximity, counsel wants to discount it, call him Killer Cam. He is a 187 gang member. He didn't come in here and say that he's president of the book club. He said, no, I provide the place where they all hang out. Here it is, 13 days before the murder. There's a shooting, January 16, 2016, just down the street from the E-Way, 710 Spear Street. Look at those two exits, right off the expressway. Approximately 30 minutes prior to the shooting, she's right. The defendant did call out, that is, Henry Hayes said, hey, hurry up, Tico. You know what else he had? Time to pick up this defendant too. Just because he called out Tico in a 30-second Facebook post does not mean that this defendant wasn't there. But what you do have is an eyewitness who said that these guys hang out in my house. And on that day, Henry Hayes made the video saying that he was out there looking for the ops. How do you combine that with the other evidence in the case? That's how they were beefing. They weren't beefing like, oh, I'm going to come steal your girl. Oh, I'm going to come sleep with your girl. No. Henry Hayes was the proclamation that it was all-out war on them. No mystery who they were talking about on those videos. And here it is. Here it is. 13 days prior to this shooting, okay? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Do you remember that testimony? Do you remember Cameron saying that he was all shoved up his 6'3" self in that little tiny Ford Focus? He said his leg was up there, and then all of a sudden, here comes that white Denali that Sam Bradford did not distance himself from. He said, yeah, I sold it to Tico, but there's a Cracker Jack in it, calling out for Tico. That makes sense. And look how close they were. Is she really arguing to you that somehow he mistaken her client for Montego Brown? He was right there getting shot at. And she's like, remember the cross-examination? She said, why didn't you duck down? He's like, ma'am, I'm 6'3". How am I going to duck down in that? He didn't have anywhere to go but to look in the eyes of this man who was carrying out his friend's plan, looking for the ops. He wants to smoke one. Face to face with violence and shooting. Look at that. You can even still see his head hanging out, just like Cameron said. His head's still hanging out. And what was he shooting? An AK. Here it is. Look at this. Look at how it started. January 16, 2016 at 10:12. Look how they're driving by. Fast forward, 13 days. Look where they're driving by. Looking for the ops. Where are they? They duck in action. We already talked about that. The defendant didn't lean out the car, and he's connected to that suspect car no matter what the defense wants to argue to you. She said that the backseat passenger was leaning out and that the front seat was not leaning out. That's supported by the evidence. We know that from the shell casings that hit out the car, and we know this one that they did not clean up. How do we know they cleaned up? Well, we know from all of those shots over and over and over, painstakingly, all of those photos you have, tracking every single shot, we know that MAC 90 was not fired just one time. So how do you know that they cleaned up that car? It's because they missed this one. They missed it. And we found it. Because Pfister was crawling in trunks. It's not like what you see on CSI. She's not wearing an Armani suit. She's searching trash cans, doing little, figuring out what hole goes with what, and she's crawling in trunks and finding this. How miraculous was that? How miraculous? It's because the only way we know that MAC 90 that's connected to PCE is because she found this. State's Exhibit 350. Right there, okay? This was found in Abe McClendon's car, in the victim's car. Guess what this had on it? State's Exhibit 353. I lost my mind and forgot to ask the DNA analyst. I said, please bring her back. Bring her back, because guess what this has on it? This is what they dug out of the seat. This has Aiden's blood on it. This is Aiden's blood. And it matches this. That matches that. How miraculous is that? One shell casing, one projectile, every single one. All those ones that are not mounted on these boards were useless to the firearms examiner. Useless. And is it just coincidence that somehow that gun ends up on the trap house where they serve a search warrant on January 31st? Is that just a coincidence? No, it's because he's guilty. There wasn't an attempted first-degree murder. I'm going to blow by this, okay? I think that we can say that that car had strikes all over it. There were 10 of them. 10 strikes in that car, all right? 2 on the driver's side and 8 on the passenger side. Every single bullet. You might have thought it was a silly question. Every single time those guns, and I say guns, there are 2, okay, got fired, somebody had to pull that trigger, pull the pressure, all those pounds, over and over. The only reason why they didn't die is because he failed. Mere inches separated both Tamisha Brown and Mary Thomas from death. Counsel argued that the defendant wasn't in the car at the time of the shooting. Sanquan Bradford didn't sell the white Corolla. Instead, he, I guess, he was driving the white Corolla, but somehow he said JB got it in this Lexus. I didn't really follow, okay? Come on now. Sanquan Bradford testified that he carjacked the suspect car, and then he contacted Hayes, all right? Sanquan Bradford must be the most amazing criminal there is, okay? Because somehow he's able to transfer the stolen car and then keep it for himself, commit the crime, and then put Kwame Richardson's DNA on it. Bradford testified that JB did respond, and he met him with some others that he said that were there. Bradford said that JB came with Kojak and somebody else. And then this is what he said. Oh, well, you know, according to Sanquan Bradford, he said, we're going to slide on Friday. Why does the defense want to distance the defendant from that statement? Say, oh, well, the state of Florida can't prove it. And I submit to you that these instructions will come for Sanquan Bradford, all right? The court, I don't want you to just blindly just think that he's telling the truth. You need to weigh his testimony. These are instructions that you have to use. You must consider the testimony of some witnesses with more caution than others. For example, a witness who hopes to gain more favorable treatment in his or her own case may have a reason to make a false statement. All this is telling you is that you need to compare. And this is when you really have to be suspect, which is it is particularly true when there is no other evidence tending to agree with what the witness says. That's a straight up jailhouse snitch saying, oh, I'm up in the cell and I heard, oh, such and such say he confessed to the crime. And if Sanquan Bradford can come in here and say whatever he wants and he really is just trying to please the state of Florida, why didn't he come in and say, you know what? I heard JB confess. He said he did X, Y, and Z, and he said this, and he said that. He didn't say that. He didn't say that because you know what? What he did say is supported by the evidence. He admitted that he carjacked the lady, no denying that, okay? And then they text the phone. This is something he can't come up with. This was sent back on January 28th, and it was recovered by Detective Lombardozzi in Hayes' phone. He can't make that up. And then JB's got it. There was no case against him at that point in time. He had not gotten caught. He had not gotten caught. How was that important? Well, the two things, we know that on Thursday, okay, is when he carjacked the lady right after midnight, and then the next day was Friday. This is Friday. That's why she wants to distance her client from this statement. And then, what is this? He can't make that up either. That Kwame Richardson's friend's phone connected with her car. And then, how do you know, more than anyone besides Sanquan Bradford, is that Kwame Richardson knows that this car is hot. It's like the biggest hot potato you got. And so where does it get parked? Over on the west side where, what's his name lives? On Sanquan Bradford lives? Nope. It's parked over in PCE territory. To the point where the officer has to make the effort to get out of the car to hide this. To search that. And then they searched. They found evidence of the firearms and found this defendant's DNA. Well, there's another argument. We don't know when Kwame Richardson's DNA got in the suspect car. Well, we're only dealing with a very short, finite part of time. Yes, from January 28th, Sanquan Bradford gives you the circumstances of that, but they say, oh, you can't believe him. How did Sanquan Bradford somehow plant Kwame Richardson's DNA, and now she wants you to believe that Kwame Richardson was, I guess, across town and went, and then all of a sudden the DNA slapped on the right place where that evidence technician was swabbing? Really? Isn't that just speculation? The DNA on the car could have been transferred. She tried to ask that question, shut down, and him talking or standing by the car. Well, if that's the case, he had to have been near it. Oh, well, and she said, oh, well, she has to accept that. So she's like, oh, well, it's only when Sanquan Bradford is sitting in the driver's seat. Well, remember what the DNA says about Sanquan Bradford. And Sanquan Bradford sees him leave with a car, and Jamari Brooks sees the defendant and Hayes with a car literally 2 hours after the shooting. How tight is that time frame? Is the DNA in this case complex? Yes, it is. They swabbed these areas, interior, I have them on the exterior obviously, but interior, the mixtures were too complex to interpret. Yes. But didn't they design it that way? They didn't go commit this drive-by shooting in their mama's car. No, they committed the shooting in an unknown car. How many people have been in this car? That's the way they wanted it. They wanted it to be too complex. And that's why they did it in a stolen car. And this car was transferred in a very short period of time, literally 15 minutes. This is what the defendant did not want us to find. That is, Pfister swabbing this area and finding a mixture that they could interpret. It was two. What did Ms. Adana say about it? The question, and I said it was shut down, she said, well, have you ever heard of something called transferred DNA? And she was like, well, yes. And then they did the example. And then she said, no, it cannot be transferred DNA. No. You know why? Because it's 700 billion times. And she stopped the number. She said, there's a threshold, okay? And exceeds the number of people on Earth. It was too much DNA is what she said for it to be transferred. So what does that tell you? That it wasn't just a from across town? No, he was in that car. Sanquan Bradford committed this crime to avenge the shooting of Ashley Clark's child on December 25th. Counsel made an analogy, I guess, to an old movie saying that, oh, it's Ashley, I guess, Sunshine Clark, and somehow she put it on Sanquan, and then all of a sudden he just wants to go avenge her child's shooting. When, listen to the testimony. She said there was pillow talk, and he asked her if she wanted to do something, and she said no. If he's really trying to please her, what is he getting out of it if she told him no? She wasn't saying, come on, Sanquan, why aren't you loading up right now? She said no, supposedly. And she didn't even know if it was Ducci that shot her baby. That was important because she said she was ducked down when the shooting happened on Christmas Day and that she didn't see it. She actually suspected Keon, which if you follow the logic, Sanquan should be even more upset with Keon because he is the brother of Breon, her wannabe boyfriend or whatever he was at the time that Sanquan was feuding with. Why would he pick Ducci if she didn't even give it credit? Does that make any sense? And then she said that she suspected it was Keon. And then she says that she had contact with Bradford again, and she really didn't want to, but he said, oh, I took care of it for you. And she didn't even believe it. She didn't even believe it. But who is she? She is a 10-time convicted felon and 1 crime of dishonesty. And may I submit to you, she stood on that stand and told a lie, okay? A bold-faced lie. You're telling me that she got Cracker Jack tattooed on her body after this happened because he was a real close friend? Really? Okay, she knows for a fact that if she's 29 and she's messing around with a 16-year-old, cannot be real close friends with him. She shouldn't be messing around with him. You don't get real close friends tattooed on your body and then somehow say, oh, no, we're not dating. I didn't really like him. No. And that happened to be his best friend. Really? That's what they want you to believe? This isn't a movie, okay? And this isn't Harlem Nights. This is Jacksonville, Florida, and this is a murder case. The cell phone information of Bradford isn't reliable. Let me give you the disclaimer. This is what it says about text message to provide, and it says PCMD, those are text message records, was created as a tool for Sprint to oversee the network. It was not created as a tool to identify customer location pursuant to exigent circumstances or legal demand. Nevertheless, it has been used in those situations as it is a Sprint record that could possibly lead to customer location. That's what it says. None of this stuff. None of this stuff. Every time you pick up your iPhone, it wasn't Big Brother trying to figure out where you are all the time. But it can be used for that. It wasn't designed for that. It's designed for when you pick up the phone, it goes and go like that so that you can ping off the closest tower. That's what all of that stuff is designed for. But nevertheless, it has been used. And what do we know about Sanquan Bradford? This case, the murder case against Sanquan Bradford, will be even worse than his carjacking because he carjacked the lady, she identified him, and his DNA isn't even on the car, but he pled. This, if he was on trial for murder, he's on the other side of town and not the closer side of town. This is at 6 o'clock on the west side on I-10. You can't get anywhere on I-10 at 6 o'clock in any short fashion. Hayes, where is he? On Spearing Street at around the same time. What don't you see with Sanquan Bradford since they want to put him on trial? The weeks leading up to it, you don't see him looking around for 187. You don't see him posting on Facebook that he's trying to kill the ops, this guy's friend. What you do see is him posting on Facebook about those girls. You do. Who, Dia, means the F, put my real name on Facebook. Police ass in, ain't nobody but D Rose. And his police ass mama did, he's going on about D Rose. Next, January 12th. Niggas ain't on shit, but always sneak dissing on Facebook, but a name on that shit, fuck nigga, that's why I fuck your bitch. Keep talking, I'ma do it again. What is he posting about? Ashley Clark, probably Shatanya, who knows? I'm a fuck jit baby mama. Again, that's what he got pressure about. There he is. This is something he cannot make up because guess what? There was not a case. I got pressure, meaning that they're hot about that hoe, my brother Kyan turned her out. OMG, you skied in that. I mean, it's disgusting, okay? But it's talking about girls. Here again, if your main, talking about main hoe, was a slut, you gotta do better. You can't turn no dog into a cat. Come on, my brother. Black History Month. Remember that one? I was like, you're posting this in January. This is not Black History Month. He was like, I heard it on a post. This is January 13th. He is not talking about killing ops. He's talking about doing girls, which I guess Ashley was up for, whatever, Sanquan Bradford didn't have a car back then. He sold his mode of transportation. He regarded Ashley Clark as a pass-around. Do you not believe him on that one yet? San Juan would have had to sell the car to JB, get the car back. This is why this doesn't make sense. Get the car back, commit the crime, put JB's on it, get his DNA off of it, and then get the murder weapon, go commit the crime, get the murder weapon to JB, and then get it back, and then there's evidence that it could be dumped in PC territory. No. San Juan Bradford in the evidence. He said that he left 187 and he was in between the two groups. How do you know that's true? Well, they put it in a rhyme. Counsel's like, well, you know, these songs, they put it in a rhyme. They dissed him. PCE, supposedly his boys, dissed him in the rhyme. Remember what he said? We might F with Rondo. He was like, that's like saying you might love me. They said it. They didn't like him. He was just a way to get guns and cars. He was not their member. He wasn't accepted. The defendant was not associated with the Glock 26. We talked about this. But let me talk about this. His counsel asked Pete Lardizabal about the photo, and this is one she chose. The one looking at the barrel. Pete Lardizabal talked about the one he had pointed to his head. This is the one that San Juan, he said, San Juan, out of Pete Lardizabal or anybody, would know what gun he gave to him, and it has that beam on it, and it's pointed towards the camera. You can't see what it is. Why did she show him this one? You know why? Because you can see that it's a black Glock. And if you don't remember this video, let me wrap it out. They're sitting there, this is a Make It Back, and it's drill music. And there he is, cheese. There he is again with the green beam. When has San Juan Bradford got his gun? There he is again. Let's talk about this for just a second. The laser beam and magazines are interchangeable. Pete Lardizabal told you that they're the same thing that San Juan Bradford, they're not in cahoots with one another. They say they can attach on the trigger guard. That the gun was found in Hayes' SUV and it didn't belong to JB. Well, why is he doing this? San Juan Bradford, if this doesn't tell you anything, you can look at all of these text messages, okay? He says, where you at? February 6th. JB ain't answering. Here we go again. February 7th. This is Super Bowl Sunday. Lil' bruh, where you at? I'm at JoJo's house. Remember, JoJo is Kwame Richardson's sister. This is the day the gun was found. He's saying, where you at? Then we have JB, his friend Cracker Jack, his sister, and Ray, all eating chicken wings up at Buffalo Wild Wings. Guess who wasn't invited? San Juan Bradford. And guess over here is where the gun got found. There's JB. And then, remember what happened? Cracker Jack says, well, anybody got a gun? He gave his gun to Cynthia Hayes. She hit it in a good spot. JB said nope and went, dropped it in the back, and then there they found it in that bucket. The evidence was argued that Hayes' dad doesn't know JB well. I would submit to you, there's a lot that Mr. Hayes doesn't know about his son. A lot. And then, when the murder weapon was found, he knew he messed up. He said, don't say anything. And she didn't. She didn't. For months and months. We are prosecuting two in this case. Henry Hayes is one, her brother. Is it any shock why she doesn't want to come and tell on her brother and say, I hid a gun that the police didn't find? No, that makes common sense. And this is how you know it was his gun. You know who, and it should be got, he corrects it later, got some stick, I'm back lacking again in one ASAP, broski. I found one, I got you. The San Juan back. Damn, you know who got a 26? Let me hold the beam. Police got that bit. Richardson was not a criminal gang member. Richardson did not commit this crime to further the interests of the criminal gang. Let me tell you something. The songs that you have heard, the history that you have seen, none of this is what you would normally perceive to be like rap, okay? Rap where they're like bling bling and they're like putting the gold chains. This is not anything about that. It is all about street respect. Who is the most feared? Who is the most revered? Who can go down the street and have a name? That's why the history was. It started all when JB, unfortunately, got slapped. He started crying. He couldn't beat big old Keon Mason, so he decides to go over and steal little man. Then there's a brawl. He's in the middle of it. These are his boys. This is how they act. They throw gang signs, and this is how they gain respect. Going in a hood, being that bold to stand there. This is where D. Rose is from. Remember that? This is where he is from. And who's he with? Calling him out. San Juan Bradford told you he knew all of them because he was in between the two. He identified that picture. There's JB. There's Cracker Jack, Ray Lacken, Tico, Kojak, and even the baser. He knew him too. He was a lot of fun, he said. But do you have to just believe him, or you have his phone? There's Kojak. This is San Juan's phone. Kojak, Cracker Jack, JB, Ray, Tico. None of this evidence has been presented to you, ladies and gentlemen, for you to determine if the defendant is a good person or a bad person. Not your job, okay? You have to know that the state of Florida is presenting this evidence to prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt. These are the questions that you ask yourself, and none of them include whether you like someone or not. You can think San Juan Bradford is the most reprehensible person you've ever met. Doesn't matter. Compare his testimony to the evidence, and then you will know that he is credible. The question of premeditation, it was talked about the circumstances. It's the circumstances of the killing and the conduct of the accused that lead you to your conclusion. You're not to look at all this evidence in isolation. You can look at the actions before and after the murder, the witness testimony, the forensic evidence, and use your common sense. My granddad used to say all the time, an excuse for everything is an explanation of nothing. No, you know what? His DNA could have gotten in from the spit. Okay. Oh, well, the DNA on the gun, we don't know whose gun it is. But if you line up all of those and follow them through to their logical conclusion, do you really have an explanation? Is San Juan Bradford the most unlucky person in the world, or is he just guilty? Admit what you can't deny. He has to admit that's his DNA. Deny what you can't admit. The fact that it got on there when it was a shooting of Aiden McClendon. Believe San Juan Bradford when he says he was at the house to trade the gun and then 187 shot at them and JB, Kwame Richardson, swooped up Paris and was the savior. Disbelieve him when he said, yeah, after he got in the car, he loaded up, we all rode down the street and shot at them block after block. Disbelieve him then. San Juan shot that day, JB shot that day, for blocks and blocks. You must follow the law that's set out in these instructions. I anticipate the court's going to tell you all of that. Your verdict must not be influenced by feelings of prejudice, bias, sympathy, and your duty is to determine whether the defendant has been proven guilty in accord with the law and the evidence. This is important. Mr. Hutton went over it, but I want to just point out this about the instruction. The law contemplates this. That is that you can't do some, and I emphasize some, or say some word which was intended to and which did incite, cause, encourage, assist, or advise another person if you have a conscious intent that the criminal act be done. The law contemplates that you can't set a whole series of actions into motion and then stand over here and go, you know what, I wasn't there. Because to be a principal, the defendant does not have to be present when the crime is committed. It covers that. This was his statement back in March of 2016 when he heard his friend got arrested. You know that to be accurate by the evidence. There was no personal beef. We can all admit to that. That's how you know this is a gang murder. It had nothing to do with Ducci. It had nothing to do with any of that. It's the fact that 187 decided to jump in with D. Rose, and all of them had to pay. Drill music. This is not rap music. This is drill music. How they complete missions. Homicide up on the nation. JB's words. F little man, he's talking crazy. That's not just anybody. It's Lawrence McCauley. Choppers running like the Haitian. Got a chopper. This was the nation he's talking about. They're calling out the whole city, and with the ultimate disrespect to them, they use that same beat, T on top of T, to say those same words I just said to you. I'm going to sit down. But before I do, I want to remind you why we're here. Not standing here to garner sympathy. Yes, there was a young life, an innocent life that was lost, okay? What we're here to ask you to do is for justice. Your verdict will not change the past. That is, Aiden McClendon will never walk this earth again. But what it will do is define what happened on January 29, 2016. It will define it. What is it? When in the broad daylight, a car pulls up behind another car and starts spraying bullets. A thing was taken for no other motivation than to be the most violent and to promote their gang. What is it? It's supposed to be murder. And who is it? Or is it the people that were out on the hunt all of those weeks before? It's not a mystery anymore. What Richardson has done has been forever and eternally exposed. We're asking for justice. If it can be defined in just one word, it just means truth. Give us